Trista from Zero Casualties. Welcome to another vintage recipe. Today we will be making a Southern pumpkin pie from a Kentucky cookbook from 1949. So the first part we'll be making is the crust, and then we'll move along to the filling for this pie. So I'm going to start off with a ceramic pie plate, and then I will show you the ingredients and get going on the crust. So let's get going on making the crust for this Southern pumpkin pie. I'm actually going to make a double recipe of the crust because I like to have lots of overhang and a pretty fluted design, so I don't like to skimp on the crust. If we have extra left over, we can make other stuff from it, but I just don't want to be left with hardly any overhang on this. So we have 2 cups of all-purpose flour here, and then we have about 2/3 cup of shortening cut up. And then I like to personally use kosher salt. You can just use regular table salt, but we are going to be putting half a teaspoon of that into the flour. And just a moment, I forgot to get my whisk. So let's get the whisk real quick. Out of here, and we're gonna whisk this together. So 2 cups flour, half teaspoon salt, and then we're going to incorporate the 2/3 cup of shortening in here. I like to use my hands, and also mentions using your hands in the book. The way I'm going to shape this crust is a little different from the book because I have my preferences. I don't know if you like making pies. A lot of people find it daunting, but once you get some practice, it is not difficult. I had a farmer's market baking business with my mom and sister-in-law for 4 years, and we made a lot of pies. So we had a lot of pie dough to make. And also, I had my own pie baking business for, it was at least 2 years or more, called Cherry Pies. That was also a lot of fun, but I do not miss having my entire house covered in Thanksgiving pies, although it was beautiful and smelled good, but it was just too much. So now that we've got that, it's kind of like a course meal. It's all kind of incorporated in there. Now we're going to add ice water. So the single recipe calls for 2 to 4 tablespoons. So I'm gonna start just with 4, and then we're gonna add from there. 3, 4, and I forgot my spatula. Sorry about that. Trying to get all of my equipment here. Here we go. So we're gonna mix this and kind of pay attention to see how it's coming together. We don't want to add too much water, but it's kind of by feel. So I'm gonna add 2 more from there. There we go. And you can see it's starting to come together more. You don't want to overwork this because you're still gonna have to roll it out. But let's kind of give it a squeeze test. I think that might be just about right, but I'm gonna add 1 more so it's not too difficult to put together because we don't want it to be too dry either. So let's get this going. All right. So I think that's just about right. Let's get that squeezed together. And for the pies that I normally make, I sometimes use shortening and sometimes butter. We would always do all butter for the farmer's market, and for my pie business, that's something I prefer the flavor of, but sometimes the ease and the flakiness of the shortening is quite nice as well. It just depends. Okay, so it makes a really nice kind of ball shape here. This is what you want. You want it to be able to come together like this without a lot of difficulty. So let's move on in just a moment to the rolling. I'll be right back. All right, let's get to rolling this pie crust. So I like to use this tapered French style rolling pin. These are very simple ones, but I have tried other things like marble and stuff like that, and it's just a little too heavy to deal with. So I like the simpler one myself. And what I like to do is turn it around. Now bear in mind, most of the time you will not have a perfect circle, and that is totally okay. Sometimes I say mine look like continents rather than circles, and that's totally fine. But just keep changing direction and keep turning it, but just try not to handle it way too much so that it doesn't get tough. You can see it's nice and flaky, but we do want to be able to have it be cohesive so that we can transfer it to the pie plate, which is not always perfect. There are many methods to doing this. I try different ones all the time. I am not perfect by any means on this part. All right, so, and it's okay to need to patch things up, because especially on the bottom, nobody is going to see that. All right, but we do want to try to get it fairly thin, because the pumpkin filling is going to go in without pre-baking the crust. We're going to do it as the recipe says. And you can see that we're going to have a ton of overhang, but that's really what I prefer. That's just a personal preference. You can cut this in half and have not as much overhang, but I prefer to have extra to work with. So this part is definitely going to need patching, but that's totally fine. There's always one or two spots. All right, so that is looking pretty good. You can't even see the circle of the mat anymore. So I'm going to try the fold method. Oh, maybe not. It's sticking to the board. I should have put more flour down there, darn it. Well, let's see. Maybe I can use this knife to kind of pry it from there a little. Okay, that's not bad. All right, so maybe instead of the fold method, oh, darn it. Well, maybe it's just kind of the grab and dump method. We're keeping it real here. So I'm actually, you know what? Let's take this mat and we're just gonna flip it over. The good thing is we can hide a lot of problems if we have extra dough. That's another reason why I do that. Because, as you can see, this process is not perfect. And the good thing is if you have a lot of extra dough, you can do a lot of finessing. So what I like to do first is get the bottom settled. So I kind of use my hand to get it to the edges of the pie pan. Can get it all finessed here. Okay. So I'm going to be able to patch those parts at the bottom, no problem. So do not worry about that. Okay. So what we're going to do is take our knife and cut some excess from the side. and use that to patch the bottom. This is actually perfect because I can show you what to do when you need to patch, because it almost always happens, because you want that yummy filling to stay inside. Okay, we're gonna take a more overhang. You see why I want the overhang for many reasons. All right, let's take this in here. Okay, we're getting a good patch on here. Lovely patchwork crust, but you're not gonna know any of that. Okay, let's get that other patch in there. Want to make sure and seal everything up really well. We don't want it to be too thick, but we want it to be sealed up. So I'm just going to take a quick look around and make sure everything on the bottom and the sides is patched up. So I see a little bit more over here, and we had a little issue over here. But the good thing is you can always kind of flip it down here and sort of patch it up there. It's very forgiving. It's not really that scary. Okay, that's looking good. All right. So we're gonna need a little more assistance over here as well. It's totally fine. All right, so now I'm actually gonna add, if you can see over here, I want lots and lots of overhang. So this one is kind of lacking here, so I'm gonna add more there so that we can make our pretty fluted design. And again, we have extra here, so let's add that there. You'll see why in a moment, but let's just keep patching away. This one's gonna need a lot of extra help, but it'll be pretty. Not to worry. All right, so now I'm gonna very carefully use, let's see if you can see this, use my knife here to cut the excess. So we want maybe 1/2 inch to 1 inch like hanging over. And I'll kind of show you why, because we're gonna do a pretty flute. And I like to have a lot of extra here. If we see that we don't have enough, we can always add it in, but let's have a bit of overhang, but we're just gonna go around and trim the extra. But I'm not gonna get rid of that quite yet because we might still need to do little bits of patching here and there as we go along. But once we get this crust done, this is really the fiddliest part, to use kind of a British term. The rest is pretty straightforward, just mixing the filling and getting it in the oven, and then just making a bit of whipped cream, which you always have to have with the pumpkin pie, in my opinion. All right, so we have a small ball, as you can see, of extra dough. That'll be for emergencies as we make the fluted edge. So what I like to do is fold under this edge. So I do all of that first and get it sitting on top here, as you can see. And you can see why we needed all that extra. So it's a nice rounded edge. This is really worth the effort because we want it to be pretty as well as delicious. And if you have one edge that's not as pretty, just take a partial photo of it. Just a lovely side view. If there's some crust that's not as pretty, it'll still be really lovely though. Okay. And if you need to bolster some of this to bulk it up, you can add some of that extra dough underneath. That's one of my little tricks. That's why I don't skimp on the dough. And yeah, a lot of these recipes, I feel like they don't leave you extra for like things like this, which, you know, I'd rather double up on it. Okay, so let's get that there. We're almost all the way around. We're getting there, we're getting there. Thank you for your patience. And anyway, leave me a comment below what your favorite pie is, either to make or eat, or both. Especially for fall or winter holidays. All right, so you can see we have a nice edge here, but we're gonna make it prettier. So what I do is I take this index finger knuckle like this, and then my other index finger and thumb. So I kind of make this shape and then keep pinching it around, all the way around the edge, so it still sits on the lip. So we want to make sure it's not going over. So you can see how pretty that is, and it's very easy. This is the best technique that I found for making a beautifully fluted pie crust. All right. And yes, you can see how lovely that is. Now, I'm gonna show you right before we get this ready to put away. I will tell you some tips for what to do when just as you get the crust done, what to do with it before you make your filling. I'll see you in a moment. Hi, we are back with our finished beautiful pie crust. And what I recommend doing with this is to, as soon as you get it all decorated like this, then put it immediately in the freezer for as long as you can. While you're making your filling, freeze it. Or if you're gonna make this ahead before you make your filling, just freeze it as long as you can. Put it on a sheet tray, freeze it until it's super, super cold. And then you can make your filling, get it in there, and then that way it's gonna hold its shape a lot better during baking. So I highly, highly recommend that. Get it as cold as you can, and it will look a lot prettier once you get it filled, and it will keep its shape. Alrighty, I will see you when we make the filling. Welcome back. We're gonna get our pie filling ready, and I have this really cool piece of equipment. It's very vintage. It's called Juice-O-Mat, and it's something my mom found for me at like an estate fair or something. But I love it for juicing citrus. That's what it's for. So anyway, I'm gonna use this for the lemon juice. We just need 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, and I have everything else portioned out, but I wanted to show you how cool this is. It really gets, it really juices the lemon really well. And you don't want to put the parts in the dishwasher, but everything else is very easy to take care of. So yeah, it's super cool. Anyway, so you take this off, and then the juice is down here. So anyway, I wanted to show you that cute vintage item, and then in a moment we're gonna move on to the pie filling. Right, so we have 1.5 cups of pumpkin puree here. I just got it canned. To that, we're gonna add 2 tablespoons of melted butter. Then we're going to add all the spices. So here we have a teaspoon of cinnamon. We have 1/2 teaspoon of ginger, a 1/4 teaspoon of allspice, 1/4 teaspoon of cloves, 1/4 teaspoon of mace, and a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. So the mace was a hard one to find. I'm just going to sprinkle all that. So I had to go to a specialty spice store to get that, but it's worth it to have all the spices in there. Then we're going to add the lemon juice, which is 1 tablespoon. Uh-oh, I have a little seed in there, so I'm going to need to start over. That teaspoon had a tiny bit of brandy in it, or whiskey, which we're gonna also add. See if I can keep that seed out. Don't go in there, seed. Okay. It really wants to go in there. Okay. All right, so that is good. The lemon juice, which I've never seen in a pie before. And now here are 2 tablespoons of brandy or whiskey. You can add 1 tablespoon more if you want. I got this little kind, a tiny one. So it's a cinnamon whiskey. And then we are going to whisk this up with our handy vintage rotary beater. Just give it a little bit of a mix up. We'll mix it more later, but we're getting all that yummy stuff in there. So we'll put this off to the side here. Now I have 2 eggs, so we're gonna beat those up a bit. It's okay if this goes back and forth because it's all gonna go together anyway. Oh, and I have my oven heating to 450 to start because we started at a really high temperature, but then we're gonna lower it down a little bit. Okay, so to those eggs, we're gonna add a tiny bit of flour. So this is kind of the thickener. We're adding 2 tablespoons of flour to this. And then once we blend that, it says, we're gonna add dark brown sugar and granulated sugar. So 2 kinds of sugar. Let me get this mixed up as best I can. I'm gonna scrape that from the sides. All right. Mix this. Okay, I think that's pretty well mixed. I'm sure that's not lumpy. It's looking pretty good. Okay, to that we're gonna add our sugars. 1/2 cup of each, the dark brown and the granulated. And it's interesting, you're gonna add a little bit of salt to this, but it says FG salt, and it doesn't really have an amount, so I'm just gonna put a teaspoon in there. I'm not sure what that means, to be honest, but that's okay. Sometimes you gotta do your best with these older recipes to figure out what that means. So we're gonna add a little bit of salt, my favorite kosher salt, in this cute little kind of pewter dish that my mom gave me. It's a reproduction of something that I can't remember, but I will ask. So 4 of these little ones equal about a teaspoon of that. So let's mix that up. And then we're also gonna add, this is a cup of 1/2 and 1/2. So we'll add that in. We'll mix that. And then we're gonna combine the 2 mixtures. so let me get this over here. We're gonna pour the milk mixture, milk and sugar and spice mixture, oh, and flour. Oh no, the spices aren't in there. Anyways, get as much of that as we can in there. Forgot my spatula, but that's okay. We are gonna mix this up the old-fashioned way. That really incorporated. And so one tip I have, in the bottom of the oven, I have a pie pan that has a little bit of water in it. Whenever I'm doing a custardy thing like this or a cheesecake, I like to have that in there because it kind of steams up the oven and prevents, usually anyway, prevents cracks in the pie or cheesecake type of thing or custards. Kind of helps them that way. All right, that's looking beautiful. So we're gonna take a slight pause and I will see you in a moment when I go get the pie crust. We have our pie crust. It's been in the freezer for 2 hours, so it's nice and cold. And we're gonna get our filling in here. I'm going to use my spatula to get as much of that in there as we can. It's looking really good. A little hard to do this with one hand here, but anyways, we're getting all that in there. It's looking beautiful. So yes, we are going to bake this at 450 degrees. Oops, I see a tiny bit more that we can get in there. Like to get in as much filling as I can. Okay, so 450 degrees for 15 minutes, and then we'll lower the temperature and cook it about a half an hour longer at 375. It may take a little less time in my oven because it's convection, but it just depends. So I might put it on for a shorter amount of time and check on it, okay? So I will see you when the pie is out. So I want to give you a quick peek. I just put the pie in, so you can see it's on the tray. And then also this pan of water down below. I just wanted to show you that, how that works. So hopefully this will work out really well. So we'll leave it in there 15 minutes at this higher temperature of 450 degrees Fahrenheit. The pie is out. It is beautiful. It did not crack anywhere because of the steam. And the crust still looks really beautiful, I think, don't you? It's so nice and flaky and it did not sink and it stayed pretty. So the freezing of it really, really works. There's a couple spots here that I accidentally touched the pie just to see if it was done. I'm gonna let this completely cool at, to room temperature and then move it to the fridge. But it's so lovely. So I will be back for some more time with this beautiful pie because we will cool it down, get some ginger whipped cream on it, and then give it a beautiful tasting and a little photo shoot. So I welcome you back in just a tiny bit, but no time at all for magical videos. See you then. The whole family is here to taste this southern pumpkin pie.
Okay, I'm gonna be really picky because
yes,
in my mind it's almost impossible to have a bad pumpkin pie. So
yeah, true.
We'll just see
I
where this
haven't
ranks.
tasted it yet, so we'll
Wasn't there
see.
like one we had one time that was really bad?
Yeah, we did have one.
We'll see, yeah. That has some good spice to it.
It does.
This is really good. It's super, super creamy.
Yeah.
Wow.
I like it has kind of a kick to it.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's like you definitely taste the spices, but you still taste the pumpkin.
Yeah, wow. I'm actually really impressed.
I would say this is top notch.
Yeah, this might be my pie from now on. Now I have to taste it with a little whipped cream and
No
stuff.
It's kind of
faults.
funny. You said like you weren't the one who made it.
Oh, well, just like my recipe from now on. Yeah, for sure. I totally know what you mean, though.
Mm.
Mm,
And with the whipped cream and the crystallized ginger, oh my gosh.
so good.
I wasn't planning on having dessert tonight, but this is going to be finished for sure.
Thumbs up from everybody. Yay.
Definitely.
Woohoo.
Top notch.
Good
It's
stuff.
a winner. Try it, everybody. Bye. Thank you so much.